Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shafer Library's first installment of our Information Literacy Workshop series. Our first session is on health information literacy, and these are the things that we're going to cover today. These are kind of our learning objectives, and the first one is understanding the importance of health literacy, kind of just getting a sense of what it is and what it means. The second is defining health literacy and understanding health information in a general sense. Third, we have the different types of healthcare. And lastly, we have some health information resources and tips for you. So I hope that this session will give you a sense and feel more comfortable with the idea of getting health information and being able to evaluate it so that it works best for you. So to start us off, we want to define what health literacy is. And according to the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010, it is the degree to which an individual has the capacity to obtain, communicate, process, and understand basic health information and services to make appropriate health decisions. And I kind of bolded the important parts of this definition. The main portion is the part that's in red and purplish pink. And we're going to kind of go through those four parts of this definition in each of these slides today, so that you understand each part of this definition. And the whole point of this definition is to show that when you obtain, communicate, process, and understand health information, it allows you to make informed health decisions for yourself. So why is health literacy important? It's part of everyday life, and it's going to affect you forever. It's going to help prevent health problems now and help prevent health issues that may show in the future. And the thing is, even those who may be strong in reading and writing, they may still struggle with the idea of health literacy. And there can be a number of reasons for this. One being that they're not familiar with medical terms or how they work. They don't know medical terms. They don't know how insurance works, and that's okay. It's not something that everybody knows, right from the get-go. So it's something that you can learn. Decision making when it comes to health can also be difficult under the stress of a medical condition or serious illness. It can be a very stressful thing to make a decision about that. So that can make it a little bit harder to be health literate. And then lastly, health information can be presented in very confusing ways, whether it's intentional or not, and that can prevent people from having strong health literacy skills. So what can get in the way of health literacy? According to the Center for Disease Control, there's a lot of different things that can get in the way. And some of the things I briefly covered in the last slide just now, but these are more specific reasons that or things that can get in the way. The first thing being just the fear or the feeling of intimidation of receiving care. A lot of people may feel ashamed of themselves for going to get care for a condition or something, and it's part of the movement now is to kind of remove that fear so that people can feel okay going to the doctor or okay getting the care that they need. There's also the shock or emotional reaction that someone can get after a diagnosis. And so they're unsure of what to do. And the shock can really kind of mess with someone's decision-making skills. And that's understandable. So that's something to also consider. Financial reasons are also a big part of something that can get in the way of health literacy or just getting health information and making sound health decisions. Healthcare can be very expensive, even with insurance in a lot of cases, so that can get in the way. And then also just lack of understanding or awareness of different health conditions can get in the way as well. A lot of people don't understand certain medical terms if they're not experienced or if they have lack of awareness of the field. And so that's where that lack of understanding comes from. Now, there are ways to improve this, and if you find that you have any of these characteristics that prevent you from getting healthcare or becoming health literate, that is okay. It is normal. I think a lot of people can identify with at least one of these reasons, but there are ways to improve them. So, of course, you want to decrease fear and anxiety surrounding healthcare, and increasing your health literacy skills can help decrease this fear. Having knowledge of resources that can assist you will also kind of decrease that fear and make you more health literate because you'll know where to go to get different types of information related to health and know where you can get different types of care. And the last thing to help improve health literacy is to prioritize preventative care over treatment. A lot of things are a lot better off if you take a preventative approach rather than getting treatment. So if something is minor, it's a lot easier to treat or prevent it from getting worse than to wait and then get care for it when it has worsened. So those are just some things you can do to help improve health literacy. There are lots of things. So this is kind of a little bit of a reflection type of slide for you to think about what you do when it comes to getting health information and where you get it from. And so I have a lot of different places where people may get their health information. We've got social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and health and fitness influencers. I know the whole health and fitness influencer industry is kind of a whole nother can of worms, so I'm not going to jump into that so much. Um, there's also friends and family. You trust your friends and you trust your family, but where do they get their information? If you're talking to your parents and maybe you have an injury, or hey, like my elbow's bugging me, what do you think? And you trust them because they're your guardians and your friends, but where they get their information can then trickle down to you. And just because you trust them doesn't mean that necessarily the information is going to be accurate. And sometimes it is, not every time, but it's just something to think about. There's of course doctors. There are many different kinds of doctors, and so you want to make sure that you're getting the correct health information from the correct kind of doctor. You don't want to be getting health information about foot surgery from someone who specializes in children's medicine. They may not know much about that. Another thing to think about with doctors is, how do they interact with you? Do they make you feel intimidated? Do they make you feel good about yourself? Do they make you feel confident in that you can make the right decision? There's a lot of different kind of questions to ask yourself when it comes to getting information from doctors. There are also many different approaches that doctors take. So in some cases, if you feel like the doctor that you're seeing is not providing the care or treatment that you need, it's okay to find someone else. It's not a bad thing to do. A lot of people also get health information online. And so what kind of websites are you getting them from? Are they reputable? Are they from some random person who claims to be a doctor? Like, do they have credentials? That kind of thing. And so kind of breaking this down just goes to show that not all sources are created equal. And there's some questions below to ask yourself when you look at all of these sources. It's like, what are the person's credentials? Are they actually a medical expert? Do they know what they're talking about? Why do you trust them, and should you trust them? And sometimes, in some cases, how do they know what's going to be best for you and your health? What are their motivations? And this one, I think, really pertains to the social media part of getting health information, because a lot of health and fitness influencers and health, people on social media, I think a lot of times they don't necessarily have your best interests in mind. They're sometimes trying to either sell things to you, or even if they're not, how do they know your personal health situation? They probably don't unless they know you on a personal level. So that's just another thing to think about when you're getting health information from different places like social media. friends, family, doctors, and online. There's other places you can get it, but these are kind of the main four that most people tend to turn to. And so getting this information from different platforms, like I said, not everything is necessarily created equal. So just make sure that you're maintaining those critical thinking skills when evaluating and getting health information. So that was the first part of that definition where we're obtaining health information. Now the second part is the processing and understanding part. So some questions to ask yourself, do you understand the medical terms presented in the information that you're getting? Some medical terms are new or hard to understand for those who are not in the healthcare field, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing, but it's just something to keep in mind. And it's okay to ask questions if you're talking to a doctor and you don't understand something. It's okay to ask, for clarification. So then once you understand and process this information, what do you do with it? So based on your understanding of the information that you get, you have to make a decision that is best for your own health. And that's kind of the main part of that definition as well, is making decisions that are best for you. Not everyone's decisions are going to pertain to everyone. Some people might make different decisions compared to others when it comes to their health, just because everyone is different. And I have a little thing here that I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this I think is a very good example of a reliable resource of health information that makes it very easy to digest and understand. If you've never heard of it before, it's called the MyPlate, and it's on myplate.gov. That's the name of the website. It's by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it's basically a website that has a quiz, and it lets you kind of see like what type of diet you're eating, and focuses on nutrition and that kind of thing. And there's a quiz, and it asks you kind of basic questions about, what do you eat in a day? What do you eat in a week? What kind of foods do you eat? And then it gives you a profile of kind of what types of things that you eat, and it shows you kind of what you're missing. And I think it does a really good job at showing, what you're missing and what you maybe need to work on in terms of eating like a healthy diet. This is a very this is only one part of many different things related to health, but I thought this was a very easy way to show an example of something that is very easy to understand. So I'll just kind of go through and show you guys a couple of questions here. So it's like, what are your eating goals? You can select a couple. And so you're welcome to take this on your own time if you like, if you're curious. This is available on our Canvas page, and you can also just type in myplate.gov, and it should take you to the website with the quiz. There's also a page on this website that has MyPlate guidelines, so it kind of shows you the breakdown of like how most diets should be. Of course, everyone is going to be a little different based on their activity levels and things like that. Now, I don't know if you guys remember having the food pyramid, maybe when you were in school. That's what I learned, but they changed it a while back to turn it into more of a plate rather than a pyramid to kind of more closely align with the dietary guidelines that they came up with. So feel free to check that out more on your own time. It's kind of a cool thing. But we're going to move on to the last part of the health information literacy definition here, where you're making appropriate health decisions that are best for you. And so, how do you use this information that you're getting to make informed health decisions? So some things to remember are that not everyone benefits from the same information or treatment. Everyone has a different lifestyle or a job or different responsibilities that are going to impact the health decisions that they have to make. And some for better, some for worse. But some people, like, they may live a very active lifestyle and have a very active job, And so their health decisions are going to be different from someone who does not. And that's just, that's just a lifestyle thing, and that's okay. You also have to consider the cost of appointments, treatments, and medicine with and without insurance. And so it's very important to stay up to date with how your insurance, if you have some, works for you. It's also important to think about how a decision will impact you now and then also impact you in the future. So it's a good idea to think about the short-term impacts of a health decision, but then it's also important to think about the future. So how will this health decision impact me 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line? And sometimes you may have to sacrifice the short term for the long term, or vice versa, depending on the situation. But the ultimate goal here is to make the best decision for you and your physical and mental well-being. You have to remember that health is not just physical, it is also mental. So it's important to include both your physical and mental well-being when it comes to making health decisions. So I have another example of health literacy skills here, where we're going to decipher a food label real quick. So if you're at the grocery store, you can actually look at all of the nutrition facts labels on anything that's packaged. And recently, the Food and Drug Administration updated the nutrition label guidelines. And so they help you evaluate foods a little bit better, at least I think, the way that they've updated the labels. So this picture is actually from the FDA website, and it shows the changes that they made to the label. And so the serving size is now larger in font. The calories are now in a larger font because that's usually a big indicator of how healthy something can be sometimes. The percent daily values on some of the nutrients have been updated to reflect more accurately the nutrition needs of most Americans. There is also now an added sugars category. So if you've never noticed this before, most food labels before this change had a sugars category, and it would include all of the sugar that was in a food in a serving. Now with the change, they have a total sugars category and then an added sugars category. So it shows that how much sugar is in a food serving total, but then it also shows how much sugar has been added. And that's kind of a really important thing for being health literate, because added sugar means that they're adding sugar to it. So it's not occurring naturally in the food. So it's kind of if you're watching your sugar intake, that is a very good thing to pay attention to on labels. So if you're able to decipher a food label, that's like a really good thing to be able to do if you want to start making like health changes, like now, if you are looking to maybe eat a little healthier or something like that. Food labels can be very misleading due to marketing and all that stuff. So it's good to be able to kind of decipher this on your own. And so not only do the nutrition facts labels can be misleading, even with the changes, there are some label phrases that you might see on the tops and covers of food packaging that can be misleading. So some things to watch out for. Some misleading label phrases can be made with whole grains or multigrain. That doesn't necessarily mean that food is made completely with whole grains, only half or only partially. So watch out for that. Natural and no cholesterol are pretty vague. Unless you're watching your cholesterol, no cholesterol doesn't really mean much. Natural is such a vague term that it isn't really regulated, so natural doesn't really mean much on a food package, although when you see it, you probably think, oh, if it's natural, it's healthy. That's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of things that are natural that are not necessarily healthy. Another thing to watch out for is low fat or fat free. A lot of foods that are fat free usually just have sugar added to it to replace the fat, which really isn't much better for you. So be sure to watch out for that. Organic is also a very vague term. Organic doesn't necessarily mean healthy, although it can seem that way. Another thing to watch out for is when there's multiple sugars listed. Sugar can take on different terminology. So some of the examples here are like dextrose, high fructose corn syrup, fructose, maltodextrin, molasses, honey, maple syrup, rice syrup, etc., etc. And kind of the sneaky thing that a lot of food companies will do is they will use different types of those sugar names in their ingredients list. And the way that ingredients are listed on a label is they put the most commonly occurring ingredient first. So if the largest ingredient is sugar, what they'll do is they'll put sugar first, but then they'll also put, dextrose, corn syrup, fructose, and molasses kind of throughout the ingredients list and kind of intersperse them in with other ingredients to make it seem like there's not as much sugar in it. So that can be very misleading. So that's another thing to watch out for. But on the other hand, there are some things that you can look for that are kind of like green flags on labels. So the first one is look for 100% whole grain. That's much different from the made with whole grains misleading phrase here. 100% whole grain means that they're using 100% whole wheat flour in the item and not half, whole grain and then half, white enriched flour. No sugar added or sugar-free. Sugar-free can be hit or miss depending on your dietary needs. But no sugar added is usually a good sign because that means they didn't add any extra sugar to it. There's also protein and fiber content. Those are usually good things most of the time, so it's always good to watch out for those. And then it's always good to just read the ingredients list in serving size. A lot of times the serving size can be misleading because the serving size may actually be a tiny amount. Like cereal, for example, if you like, I don't know what this label was for on this slide here. It might be for like maybe granola or something, but 2/3 of a cup, that's probably maybe half of what someone would eat if that were a bowl of cereal. So instead of eating, 230 calories of cereal, you would be eating maybe, 460 or 500 calories of cereal, even though you might think that you're only having one serving. So it's very important to watch out for serving sizes. So there are many other things to cover when it comes to, health information and health literacy, but I hope that the kind of the nutrition facts label is an example of showing how important it is to be able to evaluate health information to make a decision based off of that information. So we're kind of just going to switch gears here and go over the types of healthcare real quick. So we have primary and specialty. Primary is the first place to go for medical care, kind of it's your primary care doctor, essentially. There is specialty, which is a special doctor that will treat an illness that requires special knowledge. Emergency is the type of care that will diagnose and treat life-threatening illnesses or injuries that require immediate attention. So these are going to be, things like difficulty breathing, heart attacks, broken bones, kind of severe conditions. Urgent care is kind of like a tier below emergency treatment. Urgent care treats non-life-threatening but somewhat serious injury. Long-term care is for those who are unable to do daily activities independently due to a condition. These are usually meant for a lot of times the elderly, not always the case, but a lot of times it is. Hospice is the type of care that eases symptoms for a condition that is towards the end of one's life. And then, of course, there's mental health care, which treats emotional crises and mental illness through medication, therapy, and or counseling. And I have a link here that kind of gives you some tips on choosing a primary care doctor. And this is also on our Canvas page. So feel free to check this out if you still need to find a primary care doctor for yourself. This might be something that might be helpful for you. So kind of lastly, I want to go over real quick some healthcare resources that are accessible to you kind of in the area. So of course on campus we have Casiano Health Center, which is a free walk-in clinic for students and University of Findlay employees. And they have general assessment services, diagnostic tests, wound care, first aid, some over-the-counter medicines, and referrals to specialists in the area. They have walk-in hours. You will just need to check their website. For their walk-in hours, though, you don't need an appointment, but you do need appointments for physicians if you want to see a physician. And I included a link to their website here, but you can also get to their website by going to findlay.edu and then going to the offices page to go to Casiano. There's also a page on the Findlay website that has information on health insurance for international students and also for domestic students. And so if you want more information on that, there's information on that site here. And I believe this link is also on our Canvas page. There are also other information resources available to you online, and they are at the national, state, and local level. And these are all also on our Canvas page if you want to check these out later. But we've got, the Center for Disease Control, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Health Resources and Services Administration on the national level. For the state of Ohio, we have the Ohio Health Literacy Partners and the Ohio Department of Health. And then there's Hancock Public Health at the local level. And then there's the link for the health insurance for international students, a link again. Again, these are all on our Canvas page if you need to look at these at a later date. So kind of to wrap things up, I do want to just share some quick health literacy tips with you. So these are just good generic tips for anyone, no matter what your health situation is. But first thing is just make sure you're getting your health information from a reliable and credible source, not necessarily one that you trust. So it needs to be one that you trust, but it is good to apply that critical thinking and make sure that you know that it's coming from a good place. Don't be afraid to ask questions or for clarification when visiting a health professional. If you don't understand something that they're saying or telling you, it's okay to ask questions or ask for clarification. It's important that you understand what they're telling you so you can make the best decision for yourself. In most situations, the best healthcare is preventative, so aim to keep a healthy lifestyle by doing a combination of different things. These tips below are from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So, just eat healthy by watching portion sizes and reading food labels. Remember that nutrition facts label we saw? Apply some of those things to your diet and things like that. It's important to keep active. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services advises that most people do 150 minutes or more of moderate to intense physical activity each week. You can obviously do more or less than that. I'm always under the impression that, a little bit of movement and activity is better than no movement. So even if you can only do 30 minutes a week, it's better than nothing. But the 150 minutes is a guideline by the U.S. Department of Health. So another thing is to try to avoid injury by recovering properly through rest, fluids, stretching, and proper nutrition. It's kind of a preventative, idea. You don't want to make something worse by injuring yourself and then having to be in a cast for 6 months or something. It's also important to make checkup appointments regularly with your providers, like a dentist, eye doctor, and your general doctor, your primary care doctor, because that's also a preventative thing. If you go to the dentist and they find a small cavity, it's important to get that taken care of rather than letting it sit and then causes you pain, 6 months down the line. It's also good to stay up to date on your health insurance policies. Most cases, dental, vision, and medical insurance are usually separate plans. And different types of insurance plans are available based on your health needs. So based on kind of what you need, you can choose the plan that you think is best for you. So I hope that this session gave you some insight on how to become more health literate, and I hope that this gives you some resources that you'll check out and that will benefit you in a positive way. All of these resources, including these slides, are available on our University of Findlay Shafer Library Canvas page. So if you log in through Canvas, you should be able to access this through the Commons. If you ever have trouble accessing it, you can let us know through email or give us a call and we can try to get that taken care of for you. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed and we will see you guys for the next one.